Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
And let the record show that early is early for a change. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Jesse McElreath from Lake Country Church, Fort Worth. Thank you for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledge.
Now let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever and ever. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Mr. Mayes, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements for you today as it relates to the agenda and other activities. The first one deals with an item on information technology. This is item 9F2, which is the approval of the Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment Agreement renewal. We're going to remove that from the consent agenda, but we will be taking that up in court at that appropriate time. Also, remind the court that if you've seen the briefing agenda, we do have a fairly long briefing agenda. We will bring you at least 4 of those items to talk about. Also, next week we're not going to have a Commissioners Court meeting. However, on Monday, the 25th, beginning at 9 o'clock a.m., on the second floor of the Family Law Center, we're going to be meeting as it relates to budget discussions with our department heads and elected officials. We will be posting that meeting since there'll be a quorum of the court there. But its purpose is solely to talk about upcoming budget issues and the FY12 budget. Also, members of the court, today at 2 o'clock, we have the IT Steering Committee. It's also going to be held on the second floor of the Family Law Center, and that agenda has also been posted. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our meeting of April the 12th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under our proclamations and resolutions, the first item we have is to recognize our 2011 Poster Health Week poster contest winners. And I believe Vanessa Joseph from the Public Health Information Officers here to help with that. Thank you.
Hi.
Welcome this morning.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. We are here to recognize the 2011 Public Health Week poster contest winners. The theme of this year's poster contest is Safety is No Accident, Live Injury-Free. All Tarrant County 1st through 8th graders were invited to enter, and we have our winners here with us this morning. You will see their artwork, and then their artwork will also be on Channel 5 for their bus stop beginning tomorrow. They will run from the 1st through the 8th grade artwork, and they'll be showing it then. Our 1st grade winner is Alexis Ariano from D. McCrae Elementary, and Let's get to his artwork. Alexis' artwork features a bright, sunny day with a crossing guard and a student waiting by a stop sign with the theme of the contest above them. Our second grade winner,
Y'all come on up and take pictures. You don't have to sit back there. Just scoot on up here.
our second grade winner, Caitlin Buendia. Caitlin goes to Castleberry Elementary. Whoops. And Caitlin includes a lot of good messages in her artwork, along with the art that reinforces messages like always use the crosswalk, always wear your seatbelt, and keep drugs out of reach of children. Our third grade winner, Aaliyah Wells. Aaliyah is at Bill J. Elliott Elementary, and Aaliyah shows us a safe picture using children being helped safely across the street by a traffic monitor while a driver in a car waits patiently. Our fourth grade winner, Moise Crashy from Birdville ISD and Watauga Elementary. His work is a watercolor painting of a scene in the park that uses a boy who has fallen off his skateboard to reinforce the need to use a helmet and knee and elbow pads to be safe and injury-free. Our fifth grade winner, Lauren Jackson, and Lauren has been here with us before. She's from Remington Point Elementary, and Lauren is showing in her artwork buildings engaged in safe driving, whereas there's a building with a seatbelt, safe boating, a building with a life jacket, safe cycling, where we have a building with a helmet and pads, and she also included the theme. Our sixth grade winner, Kaylee Phillips from Ed Wilkie Middle School. Kaylee's artwork is a strong message about staying safe and injury-free by not texting while you drive. So we see the arm that's bandaged, and we see that that is the aftermath of texting while you drive, so we don't want to do that.
And you get blue fingernails.
Yeah. Our seventh grade winner wasn't able to be here with us today. That is Darian Delval from Irma Marsh Middle School. And Darian's work has a very simple message. Street and traffic signs are not just for decorations. We need to heed those warnings. Our eighth grade winner with us this morning, Yasmin Alassi from Irma Marsh Middle School as well. And Yasmin's artwork has a short but powerful message. As we see a baby crawling into the cabinet under the sink, the message is, close the cabinets, especially if you have a baby crawling around. Thank you to all of our winners this morning. They've worked hard, and we are so happy to see them. Before the children take their seat, I would like to have the parents and the teachers who've come here to support them stand this morning so that we can give them a round of applause. All right. Thank you very much. We'll go
Judge,
back.
could we get the kids to come up here and take
Sure.
a picture with the court?
Come on, y'all come around here.
Come on, let's come around this year.
There you go. Come on around here.
Commissioner Brooks, would you push those monitors down? Those silver monitors?
Tell you what, let's kind of move them back here toward the center. And shift a little bit that way, shift a little bit this way. There you go. Okay, Commissioner Brooks, we'll all squeeze in here.
Nobody's hiding their faces with the picture. Hold down, get them up there too high. Any suggestions out there from our photographers?
It should be noted precinct 4's dominance in this
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
If I could, I'd like a motion to receive and file.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have a proclamation on Donor Memory Garden. Commissioner Johnson.
We do, and if you would read that into the record, Your Honor.
Whereas one of the most meaningful gifts that one human being can give to another is the precious gift of life, sight, and health, and whereas the need for corneas and tissue surpasses the number donated each year, and whereas Lions Club International of District 2E2 and UT Southwestern Medical Center Transplant Services provide sight and tissue services in Tarrant and surrounding counties of North Texas. And whereas Lions Club International District 2E2 and UT Southwestern Medical Center Transplant Services have facilitated the contribution from 257 donors, resulting in 284 cornea recipients and 3,413 bone allografts distributed in 2010. And whereas the above-named groups recognize and do hereby acknowledge in the Memory Garden in the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens and the spring event on April 23, 2011, the role of transplant medicines and donor families in community medicine. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioner Court of Tarrant County, do hereby recognize that these efforts and those of all donor families are a vital part in the circle of care for all our citizens by making transplantation possible. And further, that we hereby proclaim April 23, 2011 as Garden of Life Spring Celebration Day throughout Tarrant County. In witness whereof, we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 19th day of April, 2011.
I move for its approval.
Second.
Motion second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And Clayton Meisner, Lions Club representative, is present at the podium, and I'll bring this down to you. And we get a photo op. I know it is. Thank you for being here and make any comments you'd like to make.
Well, I feel strange about doing this because we all know who did this for so many years, and when she's gone, it kind of comes into a different situation. I am tickled for this to be able to do for our Lions and for all the Oregon and Eye Bank people that help around the world with transplant service and that. So I thank y'all very much. I'm looking forward to see y'all in October.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If the court would allow me, I would like to close today's ceremony for Jeremy Smith, who was the young Marine who was killed in action on April the 6th in Afghanistan. He had completed 3 tours in Iraq. He's actually the first individual from Tarrant County who's lost his life in action this year. He was in the Marine Corps. His hometown was in Arlington. He attended Martin High School. Among his awards, he's had 2 Navy Achievement Medals, a Purple Heart, and then a lot of combat action ribbons. And so, if you would permit me, we will close in his honor today.
Absolutely appropriate.
And I've got a little bio on him that I'll give y'all after the meeting. Thank you. Next, you have before you the consent agenda with one exception that Mr. Manius mentioned earlier.
Move approval with that exception.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, we have two additional items for you this morning. First one, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve the First Amendment to extend the lease agreement between Tarrant County Hospital District and WC Arlington, LLC for the Tarrant County Hospital District's Orthopedic Sports Medicine Clinic, which is located at 701 East I-20 in Arlington, Texas.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the Court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the Court review and approve an exception to the county's travel policy for Constable Precinct 2 office. This will allow 2 of his deputies to go to the Civil Process Seminar, which is going to be held in May in Rockwall, Texas.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, members.
Thank you. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have 3 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personal agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second item, we're asking the court to approve the purchase of additional regional 2011 e-passes from the Fort Worth Transportation Authority. We came to the court back in November, as we do every year, to ask the court to continue our participation in the e-pass program. At that time, we requested permission to purchase 90 regional passes and 130 local passes. We have completely sold out of the regional passes. All 90 are sold. We're anticipating requests for additional passes with gas prices increasing every day, it seems like. So what we're asking the court for today is permission to purchase 25 passes. The cost to the county is $3,000. And, of course, we only incur that cost as we sell the passes. So that's our request, a purchase of 25 passes.
And it should be noted that also that this is a joint purchase where that the employees will also pay a certain amount of money for that pass, and we pay the remainder of the amount.
So our net cost is the $3,000?
The full cost is $3,000. That's offset by the employees' costs. Employees are charged $45 for each
So
pass.
what is our net cost?
Well, it would be the difference between $120 and $45 for each pass. To our accountant in the room.
That'd be $75.
Thank you. For each pass.
That's higher math. Somebody.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve actually 2 things, a funding change and a waiver of terminal benefits for CCC 3 and CCC 5. So here's how the request works. CCC 3 has a court reporter who's retiring at the end of this month with 217 vacation hours. So the court is requesting a waiver for the 217 hours effective May 1st. The second part of the request is that CCC 3 and CCC 5 have had a discussion, and they would actually like to share the cost of that court reporter. CCC 5 currently contracts with a court reporter. They would like to terminate that relationship and, again, have the 2 courts share the cost of the 1 reporter. So that's the second part of the request. While there is a fiscal impact, on the surface at least, for the waiver, we're anticipating that's going to be offset by the elimination of the contract worker.
So we're going from a contract worker to a county employee, but we're only going to have 1 county employee
For 2 courts.
for 2 courts.
Yes, sir.
That's
Going from a contract employee plus an employee
to one employee. Very good. That is,
That is excellent.
That's excellent.
Move approval.
I would second that.
we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
We might want to just send out a little congratulations to those two courts for working together to do that, and make sure that all the judges get a copy of that announcement.
Sure. Very well said.
Yes, sir.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Good morning.
Your Honor, members of the court. We are here today to ask for your consideration of approval for renewing the Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment Agreement. Just a little bit of background. In 2002, the court made the decision to standardize on Microsoft as the base platform for our desktop and server environments. That was a 3-year contract. This was renewed in 2005. It was renewed again in 2008. The 2008 agreement expires at the end of this month, and so we're asking for your consideration. I will tell you that this is a standard contract that we previously approved. I will also tell you that we had some issues with this contract because of misunderstandings with the previous DIR reseller that has caused a bit of a more than anticipated true-up cost. This offer is a package deal that offers some consideration to ease the county's financial constraints because of the large true-up cost. It also includes a 0% financing option so that we spread the cost of the true-up cost over, or the impact of the true-up cost over a 3-year period, instead of having to absorb the true-up cost and the first year renewal expense in this fiscal year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Can you explain to the members of the court the current situation that we are facing with the deadline?
Absolutely. Our contract expires on April 30th. In the existing contract, we are required each year to report the number of active users that we have covered under the contract and the number of hardware devices that we have covered under the contract. And of those two components, when we were doing our audit process, we weren't accurately counting the number of desktops and laptops that we actually use. We also were told by a previous provider that when we counted our servers, that we did not have to count servers that were either in test or development environments. And Microsoft has come back to us and said that that was an inaccurate instruction, and that we
Who
actually...
gave us that instruction?
SHI. That
Who is
was...
HHI?
SHI was the DIR authorized reseller for Microsoft products.
And what does DIR mean?
Department of Information Resources, I'm sorry. So that's the state buying contract. And we utilize that contract often because it streamlines our bid process and streamlines our purchasing process. We get to utilize the buying power of the state so that we get lower prices.
So what did the DIR say when it came to the disagreement between what he was telling us or what they were telling us and what Microsoft is saying?
Actually, we work directly with Microsoft on this, and as part of that, part of the agreement or the package that we put together, we need to take a little step back so that I can explain this a little bit better. There's two different components of a desktop and server environment. There's something called a Core Cal suite, which is just the basic functionality and products. Microsoft has brought out new products since then, since the 2008 period, that allow us to do many more things with our platform. There's security applications, there's communication applications, there's management applications, and we have bought pieces of each of those. And what Microsoft has done is that for us to have access to the total suite would have cost us about $400,000 more in licenses. And what they what they were able to do was to use that disagreement or the misunderstanding with the previous supplier to just grandfather those total licenses in. So we're actually getting a lot more for what we're getting with the maintenance agreement than we would have had.
For the same amount of dollars.
For the same amount of dollars, yes, sir.
If you had explained to the court the cost of this contract.
Yes, sir. Can I?
Yes.
Absolutely. There's three different components to it. The first part is the true-up cost. The true-up cost is $1.245 million. That gets us back right with the contract, and we have to do that before we can do the renewal. And actually, the payment of the $1.245 is by April 30th is part of the existing contract.
Now, the true-up cost involves the counting of the desktops and laptops and the servers?
And the servers and the users, yes, sir.
Okay.
What would happen if we don't meet the April 30th deadline?
By contract, we have to pay the true-up cost by April 30th. That does not mean that you have to ratify the renewal. But if we don't ratify the renewal, then we essentially go back to square one in the discussions with Microsoft, which means that the other things that they have packaged into the deal, like the $400,000 in license fees that they're waiving and the zero-cost financing option, would have to be rediscussed. It does not mean that they won't give us those things, but
in short, we would jeopardize the acquisition of the $400,000 worth of new stuff. We would owe the $1.2 million in true-up costs as a lump rather than being able to spread it over 3 years with 0% interest. And we'd have to start over renegotiating a contract. Is that about it?
that's almost entirely true.
Okay.
When we were working on this deal, we asked Microsoft to spread the true-up over the 3-year period, and they were not able to do that. The two cost components, so we had the $1.2 million true-up charge. Our enterprise renewal that has the actual numbers of licenses that we're using is $1.5 million. They couldn't spread the $1.2 million, so what they did with the finance deal is they took approximately $800,000 of the first year agreement, and they split that into two payments that will be paid in year 2 and year 3. So instead of having to pay approximately $2.8 million this year, we'll pay $1.9 in years 1, 2, and 3.
So overall, the next 3 years, it will cost us about $5.8, $5.9 million
Yes, sir.
for these licenses in the next 3 years.
And that includes
Well-
the true-up?
That includes the true-up, but if we want to be factually accurate, the agreement will cost us $4.5 million because the $1.2 million true-up is actually part of the year 3 requirement for the existing agreement.
Okay?
I'm still want to go back to this true-up. And basically, Microsoft has calculated the true-up?
We have reported the numbers, and they have told us what the maintenance costs for.
And I guess we're on a state contract.
Yes, sir.
And the state folks told us a different thing based upon the county. And I'm sure that we have followed up with the state and said, why did you tell us the wrong numbers?
Well, it wasn't the state that told us the wrong numbers. It was the state's authorized reseller. That reseller no longer has the contract.
Does the reseller agree that the numbers that they gave us were wrong, or the instructions that they gave us were wrong? Or are we just doing this based upon Microsoft coming in and saying, golly, we think you owe us $1.2 million more? Have we tested and gone back and looked at the state contract to determine that what Microsoft is telling us is true?
No, sir.
So the vendor just came in and said we owe them $1.2 million, and
Well, actually, no. I would say we have tested that because we We give them the number of desktops that we have in service. We give them the number of users that we have in service. We give them the number of servers that we have in service, and it's a fixed fee for each one of those unit items. There's different components that go into each of those. So it becomes a math exercise. The state contract says this is what they can charge.
But I thought you said earlier that there was some disagreement in the definition of whether you had to do it on a test server or an active server or something along that lines. Have you gone back to look at the state to see if that exception was in there?
I have not looked at the state contract.
I'm a little leery of the fact that we're just agreeing that 1.2 million is a true-up without having gone back and actually validating what the state contract is that we piggybacked on to determine that what Microsoft is telling us is true enough.
And what Microsoft is telling us, and can go back and re-verify this, but is that anything that connects to a production network has to have a license.
But is that what the state contract says, or is that what Microsoft has decided that they want to say?
I don't have that answer.
Since we're piggybacking off the state contract, it would appear to me that we need to go to the state contract, have a copy of that, and read exactly what it says and make sure that Microsoft is interpreting, or whoever at Microsoft is telling us that we owe them $1.2 million, that they've validated that through the contract before we approve this. I mean, we can go back and approve it subject to somebody looking at the state contract, but I'm not one that's just willing to say, okay, if we've not looked at the state contract that we're paying under, then how do we validate the fact that
Yes, sir.
that we owe them the $1.2 million?
So the question is that the contract that we had with the other franchisor for Dell, I'm sorry, for Microsoft, that the contract that we were under, which we currently are under until April 30th, that it's true and correct that what Microsoft has explained to us as to what we should count is actually reflected in that contract. That's what we're asking.
I mean, we're piggybacking on a contract. We don't have a contract with Microsoft. We have the state contract with Microsoft that we signed as a piggybacking off the state contract.
Our contract is actually with Dell, who is the authorized reseller off of the state contract.
We're paying Dell.
But it's off the state contract.
That's correct.
And we have not looked at the state contract. Have you looked at the state contract?
The question is,
Can we postpone?
what's that?
Can we
Well,
postpone?
let's talk about this just a minute before we do something like that. What we're saying, I understand. Then don't let me. The deal is that what the judge is asking is the current contract where we do the true-up. Does it specifically say which devices we count and which ones we don't? And once we know the true and factual issue on that, then it's simply attaching the cost per unit, and that's the price of the true-up. Is that what that's what I hear you saying?
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that we're doing that based upon the contract that we're actually falling under, which is the state contract, which it doesn't appear as though anybody's looked at.
I don't know about that, Your Honor.
Well, I have to see.
I tell
Has
you what.
anybody out here looked at that? If they would, please stand up. Well, I'm just asking the question. Nobody has said that they've looked at the contract. And somebody comes in and tells us that we owe them $1.2 million on a contract that we've not looked at.
So let me recommend that we do this. Let's hold this until after close so we can do a little more research, and we will bring you those answers.
Okay.
Or a recommendation.
My understanding of the IT world, it is Microsoft that dictates the type of server license that is required for us to buy. The state contract is essentially one method that we as a government entity can buy without having to go out to
Right.
through an
We're piggybacking
RFP
on their
process,
bid, we don't
without
have to
going to
do
go
it.
through an RFP process. But essentially, Microsoft essentially gave us two options, right? First one is to go through a Dell partner through a Texas DIR contract. The other one is we can actually go out for an RFP. Am I accurate about that? There are two ways that we can actually obtain pricing for
Pete's back
acquiring
there
this
also to
software.
give you that information.
Right, we either piggyback on an existing contract that went out and went through the procedures as are outlined by the state, or we do it ourselves. That's the two options, so you're right. And the option we chose in this particular instance was to piggyback off of someone else's contract, the state's contract.
Which
So we
is,
didn't have to go through the RFP process.
which is the process that we also used in 2008, 2005, and
All I'm saying is that contract defines, or should define, what we count. And it would seem like that would be the place we would go to determine what Microsoft is telling us is in effect the case, or whether or not the state had worked out some sort of a deal aside from what Microsoft, or that particular, whoever looked at it from Microsoft's standpoint, or Dell, whoever it is, may have looked at it.
One of my understanding also is the state contract, the DIR contract, dictates that the software licenses be all languages, okay?
Yes, sir.
And in Tarrant County, we only use English, which is single language. And my understanding is the pricing between an all-language license versus a single language license can be 20+% in pricing. Now, I may not be accurate about that statement, but have we considered the difference in cost between a single license, software license, and an all-language
no,
software
sir.
license?
No, sir. And the reason we haven't is because we do have some departments that support multiple languages. For instance, in the health department, we support English, Spanish, and Vietnamese.
Operating Windows operating system?
No, sir.
SQL?
No, this is
Microsoft
through the
Exchange.
telephone.
We are
But-
talking about Windows operating system.
But I would also say that with the way that Microsoft packages their products today in the government environment, you can pick and choose the pieces that you want, but at some point, there is no additional incremental cost because of the packaging benefits that you get from putting all the products together. And that is one thing that we did have a discussion with them about the different components that we can put together. There's actually about 5 or 6 different suites. And if we were to buy any one of those individually, after we get past the second one, there's no additional extra cost.
And who informed you of that? Is it Dell or is it Microsoft?
Microsoft.
Microsoft. And you have obtained quotes only from Dell, correct?
That is a true statement, yes, sir.
Okay.
But we worked directly with Microsoft, and they were the ones who sent the information to Dell, which is the DIR process, so that we could have this on Dell paper.
I would support Mr. Manius's suggestion that we hold this item until after court so that some of these issues can be addressed. Rick, I understand that you're just the one thrown under the bus this morning because you were
I enjoy the dialogue.
selected to present this item. It's an overall IT item, and as far as I'm concerned, there's no reflection on you personally.
Essentially, we are Microsoft house, and we also is the Dell house. So the question is not whether we're going to renew these Microsoft licenses, or the question may not even be whether we should buy it from Dell or not. I just want to make sure that the court fully understands the potential cost as we enter into this new contract and the intricacy and the complexity of a software agreement with Microsoft and or with Dell.
And I understand and appreciate that, and I think if when you look at the totality of all the different moving parts of this deal, I do think that this is a fair offer, but I do appreciate the opportunity to go off and do that research real quick and come back after closed and provide you that answer.
And the question after closed will be the same question before. If someone look at the state contract. So if you can get the state contract between now and the end of our meeting, then and our legals or whomever can look at it and agree with what Microsoft is saying, then more power to us.
Yeah, and
slow.
And I would suggest that because of the April 30th deadline that we
need to move on.
So we need to move as quickly as possible. However, during the next renewal cycle, would you please consider a little bit more time, maybe even an RFP process? I'm not saying that we should do that, but I'm saying we should consider it.
Well, and I don't mind at all piggybacking. I am more than glad to buy off somebody else's contract. I just think we need to make sure we have the contract and understand the contract.
I'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Ms. Brewer, welcome to the Lions Den.
These guys.
Good morning.
You want to talk to about inspection fees this morning?
No. I'll try to tell you what I know if you'd like for me to.
Go right ahead.
We have one item for your approval this morning, and that is a contract with Lou Ann Sparks to provide training seminars for the Public Health Department's Nurse Family Partnership Program.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Beecham.
Good morning.
We have 5 items for consideration this morning. Our first item is bid order recommendation for our bid number 2011-051. This is an annual contract for miscellaneous office furniture. A recommendation for each award of per enterprise basis and discount manufacturer's price list awarding to the 7 bidders as shown in your corporate communique under each category.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-072. This is a new annual contract for election bags. Recommendation to be awarded for low bidder on a per enterprise basis and awarded to Mascot Metropolitan Incorporated.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you sit over here on my mic? Sit down on my chair, please.
How's it feel to sit in the big boy's seat?
Pretty dadgum hot.
You have to be nice to me.
Yes, ma'am. Our third item is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-074. This is an annual contract for United States, Texas, and Tarrant County flags. I understand there's no Arkansas state flags included. The recommendation will be to award on a per enterprise basis to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our number 4 item is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2011-039. This is an annual contract for erosion control, hydromold services, and materials. Recommendation will be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is an item where we are asking the court to rescind Court Order Number 109287. There's a letter from the Human Resources Department in your court communique dated March 30th, 2011, where the third-party administrator, JI Companies, could not sign an agreement with Workers' Compensation Healthcare Network, the IMO, and because of that, we will have to secure that through a request for proposal.
I move for approval to rescind.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got under Commissioner Judge approval to submit Northeast Tarrant Transportation Summit. Who's going to, are you for the Best Practices Award, so I'll move that we do that.
Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. As we move into briefing items, I think one of the items that I'm sure this will fit this under legislative issues, because they're talking about zeroing out the numbers next year for the emergency disaster relief. So I'd like for our fire marshal to come forward and talk to us about the fires that are going on out in west of us, and kind of give us an update, and also kind of speak to the fact that how are we going to pay for that next year if no money comes from the state.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a resource guest, Melissa, that's going to answer the last question on that. She makes the big bucks. We have a running joke about that. But first of all, before I give you an update on where we are as far as Tarrant County's response, I wanted to assure the court that from March the 31st, since we've been running out west under state callouts, that we've always maintained enough equipment and personnel here to take care of Tarrant County. And you know, but you still have to understand that we have several cities that border dual counties. So we play with Parker County, Wise County, Denton County, and Johnson County a lot of times back and forth. So we've always maintained that capability to take care of our residents out in the unincorporated area and assist our cities in there, as well as play with our neighboring counties. The state call out is called a TIFMAS, and it's the Texas Fire Mutual Aid System, and it's all done under reimbursement. Once the state sends a request, we fill the request, send it out. When they come back, we reply or apply for reimbursement from the state. We've had four major periods since the 31st of March to where we've responded at the state's request out west. We've been as far as almost Amarillo. We've been as far as almost Andrews, Texas, and we played a lot around Abilene, Wichita Falls. Right now we have teams that are pretty active up in the PK area and up in Stonewall County on the Swenson fire, which is 122,000 acres. As of this morning, we normally have agreements with the state that for wildfire response, which usually are brush trucks, we'll send 2 teams. We have 4 TIFMAS teams from our county that we can send, and we try to send only 2 at a time out, and that way we keep the other 2 TIFMAS teams in, and then we have 2 other what we call ESD task force brush trucks available. But because of the conditions that occurred Friday and Saturday, with a lot of lost residents and structures throughout these fires, they started asking for a different type of task force, which is a structural task force, basically engines and tankers to protect the homes of the residents out there. And we're able to send more teams of structural task force out there than we are brush. A lot of the makeup of the two teams that are out there today are from Commissioner out in the northeast area, the Hercules, Bedford, South Lake. That NEFTA group is what they call it, the Northeast Fire Division Association. So they're out there. We have one brush assignment out there from NEFTA. We have one structural task force from NEFTA out there. And then we also have, a couple years ago, I came before the court and told you about the SERPA group, which is like the NEFTA group. That's all the southern cities and fire departments in the southern end of our county. They have a structural team, and they're out there too. So we actually have 3 teams that are active out there. The brush team from NEFTA, as I said, was on the Swenson fire as of late last night. The NEFTA structure team is at PK up in that area. And basically what they're doing is they're moving. They're moving quite a bit because when the Forest Service does back burns to prevent the fire from spreading, they go in and they protect those structures there, those homes there while they're back burning. Then as the head of the fire or the utmost part of the fire moves, they go in ahead of the fire a lot of times to different structures and try to protect them. So they're not sitting in one area. The SERPA group, structural group, they've been to Robert E. Lee, they've been to Snyder, they've been to Sweetwater, and they've been back to Abilene. So it's a constant moving thing with the structure ones, but that's a pretty critical indication of what the conditions are. And I want to say that even though we're out west, we're still concerned about what we have here. Those of you that have western edges know what our conditions are. On a conference call yesterday with the Forest Service, the fire behavioralist with the Forest Service stated from I-35 west yesterday was the 19th day of drying, and also that today in San Angelo, I think it's supposed to reach 100 degrees, and that's not a normal spring. So he made the emphasis of the 19 days of drying to say one day of a half an inch to an inch of rain is not going to cure this. So it's going to take, several days. So as my partner with the Forest Service said this morning on WBAP when they asked him how we're going to fix this, he said pray for rain. So that's probably the best way to do that. And we'll try to keep you continually updated on the situation. One other note, that out in Eastland County, there was an Eastland firefighter that lost his life. His funeral service is tomorrow at 10. We've been asked by the Line of Duty Death Task Force chaplain, who is also from Tarrant County, John Babler, to stand up a team to go out there tomorrow from 9 to 6, and it consists of a brush truck, a tanker, and an engine, and a battalion chief to stand by the station so those firefighters can go and attend the service. It's not a deployment to like the other teams, and it's not covered under the TIFMAS reimbursement because it's not a state request. Eastland is asking that. And we have a team stood up, and it's basically coming out of the Saginaw, Haslett, Azle area, and they've all agreed. I've told them to be sure and let their city managers and their people know that this is not a reimbursement deal. It's out of respect, for a fellow firefighter. So we'll continue to keep you updated. Today's not going to be a I hope it's a good day, but it comes close to being like we had last Friday. Last Friday was pretty terrible. We had quite a few fires started, but fortunately we were able to keep them under about 2 acres and jump on them fast. So our guys are working hard here. They're working hard everywhere else in the state. So I appreciate their efforts, and I appreciate your support also.
Thank you, Randy.
And Your Honor, I'm not, I can't answer your question about the funding, but I believe Melissa can. I don't like to tell you no,
Randy,
but I can't do that.
Before you
Yes,
go, how are our large tanker trucks being deployed? How many have we got? It seems like we bought them 10 or 12 years ago. What kind of shape are they in?
We have 9 tankers, Your Honor, that our ESD owns. 6 of them are the large tankers. Right. The other 3 are the 2,000-gallon tankers that are newer, 2004, and then we have one that's a 2010. We're in the process right now of starting to look at replacing those 6 large ones. They're still holding up. We're not throwing a bunch of money in as far as the ESD on maintenance cost, but we know that 15 years is the life of one of those, and we're just now cresting on 10 going into the 11th year. So we're putting a plan together, and the ESD has been setting capital reserve money aside to take care of that. And the other 3 are in good shape because they're newer. I have one of our tankers, one of the large tankers, is on the SERPA structure team that's out in Robert E. Lee, and I heard this morning, and they're doing fine as far as maintenance and repairs and things of that nature. And then we'll be sending the Azle tanker tomorrow to Eastland, to stand by.
Again, one of the large tankers.
Sir?
Again, that's
Yes,
one of the
sir.
large
Yes, sir.
tankers.
And fortunately, this year the Forest Service has stepped up with their pre-fire planning, and we've yet to have to send one of our tankers out with a brush assignment. Normally that's what we do, but they've been able to supply that water resources out to the west, and it's saved wear and tear on our tankers for use around here. So,
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned earlier, Judge, that you wanted to know how it was going to impact the cities. It actually has a direct impact to us, too, now.
Well, no,
that
I
our
meant counties and cities, especially as it relates to, they're calling us out right now, but they're reimbursing us. Under the proposed budget, that reimbursement is eliminated, isn't it?
The disaster fund is looking like it's going to be eliminated. They may add some of those funds back into DPS, into the Department of Public Safety. But after I had a chance to look at it, we do probably need to move forward with making some requests that they not do that because of what's going on at the federal level. On the last page of your packet there, I gave you the 2011 appropriations for what affects Homeland Security and Emergency Management. The UASI funds, the Homeland Security funds. But additionally, and we're going to see some of this stuff come back after this week, the interoperability grant, if you'll look down, 4 from the bottom, has been eliminated. That's one of the things we've been looking into, with our crews being able to go to the other jurisdictions around the state and being able to communicate with them effectively. We've taken a cut in almost everything. Overall, as an average, for the funding that we're going to receive next year is going to be 24% less than what it's been. That's going to limit the amount of assistance we're going to be able to give the cities to replace some of these things that they're using and to cover some of their overtime and man hours that they've got, kind of going on with this. We only roll our teams statewide after we receive either a state declaration for disaster, and we try to hold out until that federal declaration happens, and we actually receive that physical 213 in hand that guarantees that we're going to receive reimbursement. In the past, reimbursing after these fires has been a little bit of an issue because people are going everywhere and doing everything, and that's kind of where we came in a few years ago to be the big fish and take care of the tracking of all of that equipment. Randy does a good job of figuring where everyone is, and then we try to facilitate a smoother process for the reimbursement. But outside of the fires, where we're going to see the impact with this emergency fund, Judge, is where we move into the sheltering operations. We will no longer be able to pre-position equipment or pre-stage the shelters until we know where that funding is going to come from. The cities in the past haven't received reimbursement for the sheltering operations that were done prior to the declaration. And that's what that disaster assistance fund was created for by Chief Colley before he passed. So we're really going to need to move forward. Mark Mendez is looking at this closely and is going to watch it for us for the next couple of days, and then he'll get us back some numbers.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
I'd just like to comment that one of the things that we learned and were able to turn into a best practice as a result of our Katrina experience was our sheltering operation and our pre-positioning of supplies and our physician service corps and all of that. If that's going to go away, that's a major part of this community's infrastructure for disaster response, and we're going to be seriously up against it if that goes away.
Yeah, it'll be a huge problem because we'll only at that point have 6 to 8 hours of lead time before the first evacuee arrives.
Thank you, Melissa. Mr. Manius, briefing items?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several items to bring to you this morning. The first is the monthly update from the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the Court at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Manius. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for recognizing me when I come in. I always appreciate that.
I knew you would.
Commissioners, thank you very much. I'm sad today because of mixed emotions. I tried hard to be in that poster contest, and I was eliminated by Mr. Manius. It was an age issue that he had with it. And
We're going to see you being chased by the bees and
my bees are worried about my bees and my Clydesdales are worried about fires as well. So
that's right.
I'm evacuating horses. But nonetheless, I want to give you an update on a couple things. The first thing, and I'll be brief because General Motors is coming up next, and that's great and wonderful news, and we'll hear about that. But what I wanted to do is let you know as a hospital district what outside folks think of us in a tough year for all hospitals, a difficult year financially. We just were reviewed by Standard & Poor's. And Standard & Poor's maintained our credit rating and our financial situation as a AA-, which is what it was, with a stable outlook for the future. And I want to tell you that we just topped 1.1 million patient encounters last year. That's up quite a bit from last year. We've got more people coming in the door. We have a future that looks difficult from what's happening from federal funding, state funding, and we all know what's happening to the local tax base. For S&P to continue our AA rating is a compliment to the team at JPS and how we're doing financially as we take in more coming in the front door. And to that regard, I wanted to tell you that in our recent study on the needs assessment that we did last year, we discovered in that needs assessment that we had a 41% overutilization of the emergency rooms in Tarrant County. People go to emergency rooms oftentimes for the wrong reasons. And they don't go to just JPS's emergency room for the wrong reasons. They go to all emergency rooms for the wrong reasons. And so the wait times in many of our larger emergency rooms are difficult, and they're hard to deal with. But one of the things I think it's important for you as court members and the public to understand is that the overall volume for a 3-year period of time at JPS's emergency room has increased 30%. That, in real numbers, would equate to what we are averaging of about 175 people a day. We peaked 2 weeks ago at 350 people a day in our emergency room. So when you hear of long waits, that eye of that needle is small. To get that many people through an emergency room in one day is difficult. But we're doing it, and we're doing it in spite of the fact that we have taken our left without being seen rate, which is critical. Our left without being seen rate 2.5 years ago was 21%. That meant that 15,000 people were leaving the JPS emergency room and going somewhere else. We now have that in single digits.
we now fluctuate between 5 and 8 to 9% left without being seen rate. So we've come from 21% down to 8. My goal is to get it down to about 2%, and that's what we're trying to do. But you may hear in a community, because of the increasing number of people who have lost their health insurance, don't have health insurance, or lost their employment, all of our emergency rooms are getting inundated with people who they have traditionally not seen, and in far greater numbers. But I wanted you as a court to know that JPS is doing everything it possibly can to stick to its mission and deal with the people that are coming into that facility. And we've proven that by a 30% increase in our emergency department and still keeping our left without being seen rate lower than what it had been, and it's traditionally stayed there now for almost a year and a half in a single digit. My goal is to get it down even further. We've also reduced our admit times to getting you from door to admit has been reduced, and our time for discharge has been reduced. So we're trying to make headways into the key areas of making sure that we take care of the patients who come in the front door and getting them out that door faster at JPS as we possibly can. Also, another thing I want to...
As your emergency room numbers have ramped up and your left without being seen numbers have gone down, what's happening at the urgent care centers?
One of the things that we did to help offset that is we went from a 4-day urgent care center to a 7-day, 24-hour-a-day maintenance center for urgent care, and that's made a big difference. Our numbers in urgent care have gone up, but we've increased our hours, we've increased the doctors, and we've increased who's being seen. We also, staff spent the better part of 3 days last week down in Houston that has in their public hospital system, a very good triage system of coming into the emergency room and being triaged in different directions. We want to do that better at JPS, and we went to the model in Texas that's the best. And so Bill Whitman, our emergency team, both doctors and nurses, went down to Houston and spent 2.5 days down there looking at that. But urgency care, the urgent care has increased significantly, but by design.
Yes.
And it's a smarter way to take care of people. It's a quicker way to deal with them, and I think it's been very useful for us.
How many urgent care centers do we have?
We have 2 currently. We have one on our main campus and one in Arlington. Okay. And we're looking to try to figure out where they can best be located in the future to figure out how we deal with urgent care. Because the other thing our needs assessment showed is that we are inadequate in Tarrant County for urgent care centers.
Absolutely.
We have urgent care centers that are for profit, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we don't have urgent care centers that are strategically located throughout the county for those who may be lacking health insurance or need assistance from traditional public hospitals.
I think that's a major challenge for the Board of Managers, and I would like to see y'all take a very serious look at where we need to go next with urgent care centers, because that is probably one of the main keys to reducing traffic in the ER.
There's another issue to that, Commissioner, which we hope, and that is if we get them into an urgent care center rather than an emergency room, maybe we start looking at preventative health care for them. We have a better setting to give them advice and counsel for people who haven't seen a doctor in 25 or 30 years and get them to a primary care facility. The other thing I wanted to let you all know, I have come to you before with a 100-mile bike ride, and you all have participated financially and helped me with that. I will again be doing that this year, but now is not the time. I did want to tell you that my philanthropic side has allowed me to chair the Heart Walk this year in Tarrant County, and my issue there is to create all of you with having, you all have most kind hearts, but we want you to have healthy hearts. And so what we want you to do is I want to encourage you all to come out with me during the Heart Walk, which will be in September, and I'll push a little harder on this. I just want you all to walk. I want you to be aware of Better Hearts.
How far?
It's not far. It won't. On a map, it's like that far. It's real.
Is that a national map or is that a city map?
World. But it's not far, and we want to help you with the heart, and we want to talk about things like keeping you healthy and issues like not smoking, and that was not directed at any member of the court.
Well, he stopped.
I know he has.
He's doing great.
I'm proud of him. That's what I said. It's not directed at any member of the court. So anyway, I'll talk to you about that. The other thing I want to give you an update on, and that is it's not much of an update. I don't know what's going to happen in Austin, Texas. I don't know what's going to happen legislatively. The question of the day is what's going to happen to the hospital district. It's very much like what you all just looked at with fire prevention and where the monies are for that, and whether it's in the budget or out of the budget. Those are needed funds. And the analogy that I would provide is, and again, I don't want to get into politics, you can't buy a house, have the house for 30 years and not make improvements on it. And part of the things that we're doing, particularly in public hospitals, is it's not just trying to get money to figure out how we can spend it and waste it. It's trying to deal with a huge influx of people that are moving to Texas. When you move to Texas, you just don't get wealthy folks that don't need the services of a public hospital. And one of the things that I have gone down to Austin and strongly encouraged them to do is not to leave federal funds to some other state. Our taxpayers are spending dollars and we're sending it up. The federal government does not say, thank you, Texas, you just saved us $10 billion, now we're going to reduce the deficit. What they do is they say, Montana, guess what, you just got a new gift. And I don't dislike the folks in Montana in any way, but I'd rather keep the money in Texas, and I'd rather it go to public hospitals and go to the areas that need it the most. So that's what I'm fighting for. Our public hospital could stand to lose money. Our public hospital could stand to gain money. I don't want to be henny penny, and I don't want to be quizzical. I think the budget is going to be written in a conference committee. I think what you see now of what's in and what's out of the budget is difficult until it gets to the conference committee, and I think it's going to be in the waning hours of a legislative session that we're going to see. And if it's not in the waning hours of a legislative session, it's going to be in a special session. Because this session begs for a special. I know nobody wants to hear, in Austin wants to hear that, but this is fodder for a special session.
The Ryan bill, which converts a lot of the Medicaid into block grants versus, I guess, right now they're just kind of open grants, that will in effect limit or put a ceiling on what the federal dollars will be in the program.
Right.
And whether or not they're going to allow us more local control over how we administer those dollars is yet to be determined.
That's exactly right. And I'm an advocate for greater local control. No one knows what's better for the public hospital system and our indigent health care than you and us as we administer in this. Also, nobody's going to know the numbers and the influx of people that are coming into this community. I think it's great that Texas is growing, but as that growth comes a burden. And you can't hide your head to the burden. And so we see it every day. So I'm down in Austin now usually once a week. And in talking to legislators, I will say they've been open, they've been receptive, and they've given me audience. So I can't ask for anything more than that at this time. I'm going to leave with Mr. Manius something that I hope that he will give you, because he gets mad if I don't give it to him first. What we have here are two reports. What we have here are two reports. I have a snapshot for you and your staff of what JPS is, who our employees are, what our ethnicity is, what our age is, how many people leave after being there for a year, how many leave after 5 years, how many leave after 10 years. Here's a report that we prepared for you that we gave to the board. Some of you may have that because your staffs probably have distributed it to you. I want to give that to you, and you can take a look at a snapshot of who JPS is. The other thing I wanted to provide to you, for you and your staffs, is we've now had a Level 1 trauma center in Tarrant County for 1 year. We couldn't be more proud of it, and I think that Level 1 system is doing fantastic, and I'm proud of it. But here is a report on our Level 1 trauma so that you get an idea of the numbers and who we're seeing and who we're not, so that you can have that material. I'm available for any questions. I'm happy that the television camera is here for GM. I always like to see them here, and they're not here for me. Thank you. And we'll go from there. Any questions that you all have?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, I'll kind of give you an answer.
It seems like the number that I've heard in terms of Medicaid cuts for our hospital district is somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $33 million. Would you describe what the impact of that magnitude of cut would be, not only in our ability to deliver services to the populations that we are required to serve, but also in our ability to make the intergovernmental transfers that trigger other federal dollars for this community?
Three things that I would answer that in. First of all, if the state, out of Article 2 funding, which is the article of the budget that deals with human services dollars, is anywhere between $4 and $6 billion shy. They've got to get an influx of funds to make that system work, or they've got to figure out making cuts. The only relative cut they can make is to Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement rates. If you're getting, I talked to Rick Merrill the other day, and he said at Cook they're getting 60 cents on the dollar for a Medicaid, Medicare patient. 60 cents on the dollar. That's difficult for those. If those rates go down, and let's say it goes to 50 cents on the dollar or 45 cents to the dollar, you're going to see physicians in the community that say, I do not want to see that patient. If they say they don't want to see that patient has nowhere else to go but to a safety net hospital. So I'm going to see an influx of folks, and what I don't have the ability to do is do an advertising campaign that says we got this new system, bring folks in, and you get a paying patient for it. So the influx of patients that I'm going to see are going to be cost to the county and to the taxpayers. So if there's rate cuts, which some hospitals have advocated for, instead of other alternatives, such as various fees or other things being placed upon them, if that's the case, I'm going to see significant cuts. What that puts me in a place of not IGTing or not providing additional intergovernmental transfers. I'll figure out what's best for JPS, and I won't have the heart and soul of the other hospitals because I got to think about my own. And that would deal with the regional UPL program where we bring an immense amount of money back, and I'm proud to do it for the other area hospitals. But those programs are going to be at risk if I'm putting up additional dollars to bring additional dollars home. If I got to keep that money here, I will. So that is the significant impact that we see. And that's going to be a problem. I've heard anywhere between $35 million and $60 million is what the impact would be to JPS. That, to answer the last part of your question, it's done two things to us immediately. First of all, it stopped any expansion in facilities or capital that we would look at this year. Because even though we have a capital fund that could sustain it, you don't want to be in a situation to create a program next year you can't pay for. And I don't want to bring in 10, 15, or 20 more full-time equivalent individuals that I can't pay for. We already run that risk by establishing our new medicine residency program, emergency medicine residency program. It's a great program, and I don't want the county to go without it. So we started it, but we don't have enough money to pay for that in the future unless we receive some additional dollars. Because we were capped in residency programs in 1995. So first thing JPS would do is look at its facilities. I've got key areas that I need to make changes in. First of all, we have an ortho clinic that I do not understand. We have an ortho clinic on our second floor. To me, it makes no sense to take your worst ambulatory patients who are coming in wheelchairs and crutches and say, would you mind going to our second floor? You got two choices. You can take the stairs or wait a long time for a slow elevator. So that, I think, is a poor thing to do. I want to change that, and I want to retrofit our old emergency room and move our ortho department over there. I can't do that, though, not knowing where my funding cuts will be. I got to put cash back for the future. Right. The second thing it will do, Commissioner, is it will begin to have JPS look at its scope of services. And you have essential services that we'll provide, but if you get a cut like that, and then if you look at what the commercial tax base may be locally, we took about an $8.9 million less in taxes last year. If we look at that, then it's all a scope of services issue. So it's difficult, but I will tell you that we want to be pragmatic rather than the sky is falling approach, and that's the approach we're taking, is to be very pragmatic and think through this. The key to that, any cut, is to protect and preserve essential services, and then go from there. So
well, I asked that question so that the citizens could be aware of the impact of what may be about to befall them.
There's an attitude sometimes in public funding, and particularly public hospitals, that you just simply don't run out of funds. You're always there. And I know there's been a history of JPS and its funds, but I will tell you that we are servicing a much larger population than we have historically served, and that costs money. That's what we should be doing. That's what the mission is. But when that mission is jeopardized with how much funds you have to be smart about how you do things. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
So, good seeing you again. Great. Next month. Mr. Manius, can we get copies of those reports from you after you had a chance to look over them?
We're going to screen his comments next month. Members of the Court, we can move to item B. This is a tax abatement request from General Motors. Ms. McMillan is here to address the Court at this time.
Judge, Commissioners, I'm here to brief you today on a request from General Motors regarding an expansion and retooling of the Arlington Assembly Plant for the next generation truck and SUV platform. The proposed improvements include a $13.5 million expansion to the facility of approximately 107,000 square feet, and $241 million in cost of personal property for new equipment, modifications, and retooling to the body shop, paint shop, and the general assembly area. As you all know, the GM Arlington plant has undergone several expansions over the past decades, the last of which was in 2004 at a cost of over $170 million. At that time, the county participated in tax abatement for that project at a maximum rate of 80% of the new value invested. The plant currently produces the Chevrolet Tahoe and Suburban, the GMC Yukon and Yukon XL, and the Cadillac Escalade. Employment at the plant is currently at just over 2,300 employees, and their average payroll is over $202 million per year, including benefits, which we know GM provides very healthy benefits to its employees. With this expansion, they're expecting at least 110 new jobs to be located at the facility. Additionally, there's hundreds of workers that are employed by local suppliers, companies such as Lear, Android, and Hagemeyer, that provide parts and services for the assembly and operational activities on a daily basis at the plant.
That's those third-party?
Correct. They provide the seats, the in-time parts that go along with the assembly of the production. General Motors, of course, now is in the process of deciding which plant will produce its next generation truck platform. The GM Arlington plant must provide a competitive business case to General Motors in order to guarantee that it receives the investment necessary to retool the local plant. GM Arlington has worked tirelessly over the years to produce vehicles at a low cost and very efficiently. They have a very good working relationship with their local union and their employees. They are asking the City of Arlington and Tarrant County to help them make a good business case for General Motors and to provide tax incentives on this new investment. The City of Arlington is now proposing a maximum 90% tax abatement for 10 years, along with waiving some of their permitting fees for this newest expansion. You have in your packets a detailed outline of proposed terms that the county staff has developed for the county's tax abatement for this expansion. We are proposing participation at a maximum of 70% tax abatement for 10 years. This would provide a base abatement of 45% for the new value added, the construction of the expansion, and the maintenance of the 2,300 jobs at the plant. An additional 25% abatement can be received for additional added employees and also for added percentage Tarrant County employment, and also for the use of disadvantaged business enterprises and Tarrant County contractors in the construction phase of the expansion. And in any year, if the employment should ever drop below 2,300, the base abatement percentage would be reduced proportionally. As in the past, GM is requesting a variance from Tarrant County's minimum requirements regarding the use of Tarrant County and DBE contractors. This is because General Motors Corporation has purchasing done on a global basis, and the local plant really has minimal control over contracting opportunities here. We are hoping that they will work closely, though, with the contractors on at least the construction portion of the facility to give those opportunities to local and DBE contractors. However, the plant does, as I've said, work with Lear, Android, and some of our local contractors, and they spend over $650 million a year with those local contractors on their annual supplies and parts. In 2010, GM paid over $5.4 million in taxes to all of our local taxing entities, and just over $1 million in tax revenues were received by the county and hospital district. GM expects to add over $170 million in actual value to the tax roll with this new expansion. At an estimated percentage abatement of 70%, the maximum, if they should receive that, we are expecting that over that 10-year period, the county would abate approximately $1.8 million total, and the hospital district would abate approximately $1.6 million. Over that same time period, we would receive revenues combined of over $1.5 million. Additionally, they would continue to pay taxes on the base value of the plant as it is now. Several representatives from General Motors are here today: Troy Kennedy, John Blanchard, and Paul Graham, the plant manager. And I'm going to ask Paul to come up and give you some more information about the expansion.
Before you do that, I'm interested in why you selected 70% as the maximum abatement rather than what we have now, which is 80%.
I think as the years have gone over, obviously that was done in 2004, and we have tried to scale back so that we have a little bit closer of a win-win. And to be honest with you, right now, General Motors for the last couple of years has only received 60% tax abatement on the current abatement. That is because the employment levels have dropped, so they're not receiving the bonus abatement. It was a maximum of 80%, but they're only receiving the 60% base. So looking at the fact that over the years the employment has dropped a little bit, that is why we scaled back on the maximum abatement that we felt that we should offer for this upcoming request.
It's a good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to speak and address the County Commissioners Court today. So I'm going to be fairly brief because I think Ms. McMillan did an excellent job outlining a lot of the details of the project, but there are a few things that I would like to just reinforce, and then we'll be available if you have any questions for myself or Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Blanchard. So as you know, we produced full-size SUVs here at GM Arlington. Recently, two of those, the Cadillac Escalade and the Chevy Tahoe, were best in segment for J.D. Powers in 2010 ISQ surveys. So that's a testament to the great products that our workforce builds here in Arlington. And Arlington's got a great history of that. In addition, we build many other full-size SUV utilities, the Cadillac Escalade ESV, the GMC Yukon, as well as hybrid versions of both of those vehicles here, all in Arlington. Each day, our 2,300 employees produce 1,140 vehicles on 2 production shifts, and our payroll is $202 million a year, with a lot of that money coming back into the Tarrant County community. Tarrant County has been a partner in our success over these many years, and I thank you for that. Today, I'm here to ask for your continued support as we develop a business case within General Motors to build the next generation SUVs. Our potential plans call for an approximate $250 million investment in machinery, tooling, and equipment, and an expansion of the existing body shop facility. The investment has the potential also to add 110 jobs. At this time, we are exploring what incentives might be available for the potential project. It is important to note that the final determination will be based on the strength of the overall business case for the project. Securing economic incentives is an important part of that business case development and enhancing the competitiveness of our Arlington plant. We at GM appreciate the long-term business relationship that's developed in years between the plant and Tarrant County. In fact, we're approaching here shortly, we'll be building our 9th million vehicle in Tarrant County at the GM Arlington plant. So it's going to be quite an accomplishment as we go forward here, approaching that here in the second quarter. And we look forward to continuing to build this relationship in the future. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity, and take any questions if you have any.
We want to thank you for how great of a community partner you've been over the years. I know that Judge Vandergriff had a special place in his heart for y'all, and I know how critical he was to bringing GM into Arlington, and y'all have been a tremendous asset to our county.
What are the competing locations?
Well, that's not information that we can disclose at this time.
Can you disclose whether the next generation SUV is as large as the current generation?
No, unfortunately, we can't discuss that either right now.
Approaching $4 a gallon in gasoline.
No, that's something right now we can't discuss either.
They're generating one of those all-electric cars that's not paying any road tax.
I mean, obviously, our product is very popular in this area. The South Central region, we sell a majority of our product in the Texas and South Central region, so we're happy to be here.
We appreciate you being here, too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions that you can't answer?
I'm sure there's a lot, actually.
Thank you all very much.
Now, Commissioner, I'm on my third Suburban. There are some of us who like those large vehicles that GM produces. If the terms that we have proposed here meets with your approval, we will move forward and prepare the tax abatement agreement, and we expect to bring that back for your consideration on May 3rd.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the Court, if we could move to item C. This concerns an update on the Texas Healthy Lifestyles Chronic Disease Self-Management Program. Sawyer Caldwell is here to address the Court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for the opportunity to share with you about the diabetes education program. This is called Chronic Disease Self-Management, and it actually is a program that comes out of Stanford University. It's been used all over the United States and is considered an evidence-based program where they've seen people be able to prevent complications after they've been diagnosed with diabetes and reduce health care costs as well. Our latest behavioral risk factor surveillance survey here in Tarrant County found that we have had a 29% increase over the last decade in persons that are diagnosed with diabetes. So now it's 8.5% of the adults in Tarrant County have a diagnosis of diabetes. In response to this increase, we've formed a partnership with the Area Agency on Aging, Senior Citizens of Tarrant County, the Veterans Administration, and Tarrant County Public Health to bring this chronic disease self-management program to Tarrant County. And you should have in your packets one of the brochures. This program actually is focusing, because it is area agency money, it's focusing on people who are 60 and over, but they don't just have to have a diagnosis of diabetes. They may be at high risk for diabetes, or they may be caretakers of someone who has a diagnosis of diabetes. And the funding for this program comes from two places, the United Way and also the Texas Department of Aging and Disability Services. And what we've been able to do is train persons from these four entities to go out and provide these free classes. The classes span 6 weeks, and it helps the participant in the class actually become an active manager of their diabetes. So it's not just about eating right and getting exercise, it's also medication management and symptom management. The classes are held throughout the community in a group setting, and to date, we have about 365 people who've enrolled in the classes, and 222 have completed them. And we've been able to net from those classes 26 lay trainers, and we're hoping that'll help us sustain our program going forward because they can train in their communities, churches, senior citizen centers, and so forth, wherever they feel comfortable. I also would like to say that we'd like for you all just to remember this as a tool for your constituency, and also know that information about this is available at 211 and on the TarrantCares.com, as well as the Public Health Department links. So we'd just like for you all to know this and let you know that, too, we've been visiting with healthcare providers because we know this is a great way to augment the information they provide their patients. All righty. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Members of the Court, if we can go to item D, this concerns a brief update on the 2006 Capital Improvement Program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to update the Commissioners' Court on the progress of the 3 building projects included in the 2006 Capital Improvement Program. First, the jail. The granite blocks have been attached to the east side of the jail, and they look great. The masons have started on the south face, and the brick above the granite will start soon. The 200-foot tall tower crane has been removed from the project a couple of weekends ago, but before it left, we were able to lift up 3 large 600-kilowatt diesel generators on the roof, along with the HVAC centrifugal chillers, cooling towers, and boilers. On to the medical examiner's office project. The exterior skin is attached to that building, and it looks good. The interior overhead ceiling work, as far as the mechanical, electrical, and fire protection work, is wrapping up now. The interior drywall work is progressing nicely, and the lay-in ceiling grid work has begun. The crime lab cabinet and countertop work begins at the end of this month. The permanent electrical power has been connected to the building, and the air conditioning systems will be started up by the end of this month. The portable temporary body coolers will be set in the street next to the building soon, and they'll be used while the existing 23-year-old body coolers are taken out of service, refurbished, expanded, and put back in service.
Body coolers?
Yes, they are body coolers.
This is in the medical examiner's office?
Yes.
Okay, I was back at the jail, and I was trying to figure out what we were cooling off.
These are the real body
now
coolers.
I'm back with you.
Yes.
I temporarily got behind you on the deal.
On to the Civil Courts building. Please be advised that the exterior skin mock-up, which depicts the granite, the brick, and the window system for the exterior of the building, has been completed. It's over on Block 11 and ready for your review. What I'd like to do sometime this week, if possible, is take each one of you over there, take a look at it, because we'll be presenting the final design development documents to you in May. As a part of that, we'll ask you to approve the granite and brick wall system. And we'll have to you some updated west elevation renderings here next week.
Okay.
On to regarding the project site cleanup.
Is that where we're going to talk a little bit about all the people who are going to be standing outside to get inside? Or is that interior?
Both.
Okay.
As far as the project site cleanup, Block 11 has been cleared of the concrete slabs and asphalt, and soon the petroleum-contaminated soil will be removed over the next couple of weeks. And after that, we'll ask T.C. Webster with Precinct 1 to bring a crew out and to dig ground into the soil all over the 40,000 square foot block to make sure we don't have any leftover concrete grade beams or concrete foundations that we didn't find.
Have you told him how deep to dig?
Until he hits the limestone rock, then he can stop.
I think it was him that dug too deep on
No, it wasn't. It was somebody else. I just thought we might try to prevent that from happening a second time.
And lastly, tomorrow we'll be turning off and disabling the clockworks on the 1895 courthouse, and it'll be off approximately 1 year.
Bummer.
Yes. And that's all.
We are going to be able to get started back up.
That's our goal, is to start it back up, Judge, in about a year.
They'll be right twice a day.
Yes, it will. And that's all I have to say this morning.
Now, when is the scaffolding and all that going up?
You won't actually see scaffolding go up till the end of May. Currently, we're going to, well, this week and next, they'll be setting up this tower stair on the northwest corner of the property. You won't be able to see that from here. They'll set up a bridge from the tower stair over to where the tower or the clock tower is. They'll scaffold up low. They're going to start having to do some asbestos abatement before they can take off the lower cast iron balustrade and skirts underneath. So what's holding that together now is some asbestos hooky. So we'll take that.
That sounds like a Razorback term.
It is. And you'll see a crane, a 300-ton crane or something will be on Belknap Street, and it'll start taking the pieces, the balustrade and the skirts off probably in early June. Then after that, they'll be able to bring in and build up the scaffolding all up the 100 feet of the clock tower. Thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, members of the court, on item E, included in your packet is the memorandum from Mr. Mendez. Just some issues at the front. HB1 is in the Senate, should be coming out of committee at the end of this week. What that means, and it ties to what Mr. Early was talking about, it'll be going to conference committee after that. So yeah, I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions you might have as it relates to this memo this morning.
Any questions?
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
Then we'll recess our open session and move to closed session to discuss items exempted under Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Your Honor, we have one item yet. It's IT. Mr. Smith, are you going to make that presentation, or who's going to make it?
Pete's going to make it. I just want to make it.
Please do.
Your Honor, Commissioners, I wanted to make sure you understood this morning that staff that came up that addressed questions have been working on this contract for years. They're some of our best staff, and they are as prepared as they could be to answer all those questions. So we've gone back and done some more work. We want to come back and present that information. Rick is a very valued employee in our organization, very capable, and it was a little bit of short notice, and he had the best information possible at the time. So we've done the research. We'll address those questions now.
Thanks.
Pete.
Good afternoon. I have, since open session, I've looked at the state contract. I've looked at all the appropriate contracts, and I'm prepared to answer any of the questions that you have at this time.
Well, I guess the question that keeps coming up is that the DIR, whoever that was, whether it would be Dello, had told us previously this is the way you count things.
The way that you count things is specified in the state contract. And specifically, it says look at the product use rights, which Microsoft has product use rights for each of its products. As a practical matter, what happened was back in 2008, they said, how many devices do you have? How many licenses do you need? And we said, well, how do we count? Rather than going and looking it up, they told us how we count. We counted.
They? Who was they in that particular instance?
They was the vendor that we were dealing with at that time.
Who was?
Software House International in 2008.
Okay.
Okay. So we counted licenses. We told them this is how many we have, and we paid the price. It came time to renew the contract. We were dealing directly with Microsoft this time. They said, how many licenses do you have? We said, how do we count? They told us how we count, and we gave them the number. So all we're paying for, there's not any penalty involved or any paying for anything that happened in the past or anything like that. We have X number of licenses, and we had been previously paying for less than that, and this trues us up to the appropriate number.
Bottom line question, Pete, is are we confident that we owe the $1.2 million?
Yes, sir, very confident.
And have we, what is our relationship now with our former vendor? The one that told us the wrong way to count.
As it relates to this contract, we don't have a relationship.
I guess what I'm just asking is have we gone back to the previous vendor who told us how to count and said, did you just miss it? Did you not understand? Why did you tell us this way and Microsoft is telling us this way and it's costing us $1.2 million?
The net effect of them telling us wrong, Your Honor, is that we did not pay, we avoided paying this higher number from 2008 to 2011.
I understand that. But again, are we absolutely sure that they agree that what they told us was wrong? Because for some reason, somebody told us, don't count this, don't count this, don't count this. And so we went and did just what they told us to do. So the question is, do they agree that they I'm not looking to go back at them for any money, but I'm just saying.
You won't be going back for them for any money. You'll be
No,
going back to pay them more is what you'd be.
Paying who more?
Microsoft.
We're paying Microsoft $1.2 million. I'm talking about the vendor. So why are we going to pay them more? We're not paying them in the first place.
You're licensing today for 4,000, whatever, what is the number?
Microsoft has done their count, and they've told us that we owe them $1.2 million.
We did the count.
We did the count based upon what Microsoft told us we should have counted. So what I'm saying is, what was the difference between what the vendor, does the vendor agree that what Microsoft has told us, and we've subsequently gone back and redone, and determined that we owe them $1.2 million, would this vendor say, yeah, I missed that, I'm sorry, I just, I was wrong in what I told you?
We have not asked the vendor that question.
And we haven't because?
The primary reason is because there's no positive outcome that could come out of that.
Well, tell me the negative outcome that could come out of it.
They could say, yes, you're right. You should have paid us more money.
And we're fixing to pay them more money, $1.2 million to be exact.
That $1.2 million is not for what happened because of the mistake. That's for the actual number of licenses that we now have going forward. There are two components to what we pay Microsoft.
Okay. There was a true-up. What's this true-up amount then?
True-up is, there are two components to what we pay Microsoft. We pay them for licenses and we pay them for maintenance. Licenses are when you get something new, you have to have a license for it. Then after you have the license for it, you have to pay maintenance on it as long as you use it. Okay? We had X number of licenses that we were paying since 2008. Okay? True up means, okay, how many are you now using? Now we're using more. So we have to buy the delta between what we're using, what we told them that we had in 2008 and what we now have in 2011. We are buying those licenses which we owe that money. Those are new licenses. We're not paying the maintenance cost for the time in the past that we were underreporting.
The difference, this true-up number, is it 4,600?
That is on the desktop side, yes, sir.
That's the total number of desktops?
It's a total number of licenses.
Okay.
Sorry.
And the last time you quote trued up, that's what you want to call it. Let's say we had 3,500.
Correct.
So now we have 1,100 difference.
Correct.
And we're paying an additional 1.2 million or whatever, 1.245 for that difference.
That's correct. To acquire those additional licenses.
License for those additional,
Yes, sir.
That's what we're talking about.
That's exactly correct.
And we're paying that now, and is that for use of that software in the prior years, like 08 or 09?
No.
Or is that moving forward?
No, it's moving forward only.
And then the other 4.6 million,
Yes.
add the two and you come up with your 5 point whatever.
Yes.
That other 4.6, that's for maintenance?
Yes. Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. How often do we count? To give them?
Annually.
And so what we're saying is, on an annual basis, we didn't give them a correct count for the last 3 years. and they're forgiving us any true-up on an annual basis throughout that process. But that as of 2011, May 1st, we're saying we've got 4,600 units, and they're not asking us to go back and give them an accurate count. And in no way is any of this money that we're spending paying for anything prior to May 1st, 2011.
That's 100% correct. Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion?
If you want to check, I'd ask that you have it approved without it appearing on the claims register so I can cut the check before May 1st, because you don't meet next week, and it's not on the claims register today.
I'll add that to the motion.
We have motions.
A second, your addition.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time.
There being no further business, we're adjourned.
Yes, sir.